Here's kind of what really happened. So my daily diet was Lortabs. I'd go back to sleep after I dropped the kids off because I hadn't slept all night. Sleep till about 11, get up, maybe do a line of cocaine, maybe take a Xanax to even it out a little bit, do my work, and then I'd maybe take another Lortab at 2 o'clock. I mean, I had it kind of planned out, right? And then I had to sober up a little bit because I had to go get my kids. And then I would go pick up the kids, go to their sporting events, whatever we had to do, come home, make dinner, make sure all that got done, and then start back up again in the evenings once they started going to bed.
Vicious cycle.
And at night, guess what? I couldn't figure out why I couldn't sleep. I wonder why, right? So I would take Benadryl and then drink shots of vodka. Now, that will kill you. That combination of drugs will absolutely kill you. And one night, I was in my house, and the only two people in the house were myself and my daughter, who was 15 at the time. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was doing all of that, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't sleep. And I was like, well, I'll go take a shower. So I went in the shower, and as soon as I started the shower, the world started going black fast. And I remember thinking to myself, if I go down, I'm not getting back up. And so I grabbed hold of the spigot and turned it on cold and just held on. And because my temperature had spiked. So as it started coming down and the world started coming back into the view, I went and laid on the bed. Now, it's important to know that I told everybody I knew that I had a problem. I told my parents, I told my siblings, I told my pastor, I told all of them. And you know what they said to me, Neil? They said, just stop doing that. Well, why would you do that? Just stop doing that.
Who was the president's wife? Was it Nancy Reagan?
Yeah.
Just say no.
Yeah, just say no.
Right?
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
In fact, my best friend, Brian, we were in his man room. He's got a nice house with a really cool man cave. And we were in there one night, and I said, Brian, I got to talk to you. I said, I have a serious drug problem. I don't know what to do about it. And he looks at me, and he goes, Keith, he goes, if you're a drug addict, you're the most put-together, successful drug addict I've ever seen in my life. I said, well, that might be true, but I just did a line about that big off the back of your toilet, so what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And so anyway, but I tried to get help, right? But so this night I called my brother, who's an internal and pulmonary specialist, and said, look, this just happened. He goes, I think he almost just stroked out. I said, yeah. I said, I need to go to rehab. And so that was the low point. That was what finally got me to go to rehab. Because the other thing, and a lot of people struggle with this who are like me, myself, who are successful in business in their work, is how am I going to leave everything I'm doing for 30 days and go to rehab? I had kids, I had a house, I had bills, I had a job, I had all these things, but it really just came to the choice was either go to rehab or die.
Now, when was this, where was this, and what was it like?
So this was back in 2012.
Okay.
In Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay.
And so what we did is we ended up finding a rehab in North Dallas called Karen. Awesome place. And I was excited to go, quite honestly, because I used to lay awake every night on a couch, and I would pray this prayer. And there's a train that goes through Baton Rouge, outside of Baton Rouge at 3 o'clock every morning. You know how I know that? Because I was up every night at 3 o'clock, and I heard that train going through. But I would pray this prayer. I'd say, God, show me what I need to do to beat this. Give me the strength that I need to beat this addiction. It turns out I was praying the wrong prayer because I couldn't do it. And I didn't understand that, and I didn't know that. But so when I went to rehab, I was extremely willing to do what else. I knew I didn't have the answer. So maybe these people knew something I didn't. So I get there, and there's a lot of things I could tell you about that, but the most important thing is this. About a week and a half into it, the spiritual advisor, his name's Steve, says, hey, come see me in my office. So we're sitting across the table just like this, and he looks at me and he says, you know what the problem is here, right? I said, no, man, if I knew what the problem was, I wouldn't be here. Why don't you enlighten me? And he looks right at me and he goes, you don't love yourself. And I said, no. I said, I love me some me, man. I'm good. He goes, no, you don't love yourself. I said, no, really. I said, I grew up in a good home, good parents, no abuse, none of that stuff. I said, I'm good. He said, you don't love yourself. Now, this went on for about 10 minutes. And finally, I was like, are you done Goodwill hunting me here? Can I go? And I went and sat back in my room, and I was upset, but it turns out he was exactly right. I didn't like anything about me. I led this real double life where on one side of my life, I, would volunteer, help anybody I could, help start a church, was, worked as the youth director, played in the band, did all this stuff. And on the other side, I traveled. And when I was out traveling, it was a free for all, chasing strippers, snorting cocaine, drinking, you name it, we did it. And it was this double life that I just hated, and I hated myself for it. And so that started a journey of self-discovery that helped me to start getting better, right? And because here's the key to recovery is learning about yourself and understanding why you do things and understanding the deep-seated beliefs that we have in our subconscious that drive our behaviors. And some of those beliefs are false beliefs, but they were things that happened, or they were taught us, they were reinforced by something that happened and then taught to us again, and they come down here and they become a belief, and we work off of that. And so I get out of rehab. Now, here's an unexpected thing that happened. And this, if anybody's been to rehab that's listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. I get out of rehab, and I'm thinking, Dad's back, everything is good. Everything was not good. It was my kids, and I have 5, were looking at me going, wait a minute. Now, you've told us our entire lives, if we're going to drink responsibly, don't use drugs, stay away from these people, and you've been doing all of this. You're just a giant hypocrite.
So you had to try to rebuild relationships and trust.
And that's hard. And in fact, it was so hard, and it was such a big mess with our family that we bugged out for a year. We literally sold our house and moved down to the coast, left the kids there. They were all 18 and in college, but went down to the coast and didn't speak to my family for an entire year. Everybody just needed some space. And it was actually a really good year for me and Raquel to go down and focus on us and focus on work and kind of get used to the whole sobriety thing. I had some cousins down there. It was in Pass Christian, Mississippi. Lovely, awesome place if you ever go there. But after about a year, though, it was time to start mending those fences and building those relationships again. And I got to be honest, it's been a process even to today to do that. But the best thing you can do, and I tell people this all the time, they want to go, because part of the 12 steps is making amends. Everybody's heard that. The best amends you can make to anybody is a living amends. How are you going to live your life today? Be that example of somebody that has turned it around and lives the right way and lives out these principles and lives out the things that we say we're going to do every day of your life. And so the point in all that is just because you get sober doesn't mean everything's rosy. I still had a house in foreclosure. I still had $60,000 in revolving credit card debt. I still had problems with my kids. I had all these things to deal with. And then on top of that, we get in a serious motorcycle wreck at the end of 2013 that puts me in the hospital for 2 months. And so we're looking at all this going, God, what are you doing? But as it turns out, all that stuff worked together for our benefit. And it brought us to the point we're at today, where if you look at my life 10 years ago and you look at it today, there's absolutely no resemblance between the two. If you look at me physically versus 10 years ago, it would blow your mind. Just the difference in my countenance, the way I look, the health, everything that we have. And but look, we've been through some serious things since then. We've been through cancer. We've been through moving a couple times. We've been through changing careers. We've been through starting up a business and then COVID and all the things that have gone on with that. But you know what? God is good. And he's blessed us. I say all the time, he's blessed us when we deserved it and blessed us when we didn't. And the biggest thing that changed for me, there's 2 big things. One is I finally got to go from being a believer to being a follower of Christ. And there's a big difference between those 2 things, but I could never do that while I was drinking and using and living in the flesh. But once I got that straightened up, all of a sudden it started to make sense to me. And the things that I didn't understand how I could do and enjoy them now made sense to me. And so our life today is really Christ-centered. It is centered around helping other people. I give a lot of my time every week to others. And I do that by choice.